Good evening, everyone. Ian Patrick here, and boy, do I have a creepy one for us. It's a short one, but it is extremely disturbing and creepy, which is what we like on a Frightening Friday flick, don't we? Tonight's movie review is a movie that came out in 1932, and it's Murders in the Rue Morgue, which was originally an Edgar Allan Poe story. This is a Universal horror film, which obviously right away, good sign it's going to be good. It's only 1 hour long, and interestingly enough, the originally movie was going to be 80 minutes, but they had to cut out about 20 minutes worth of film because the scenes were just too violent and too messed up for back then, which says a lot, because there is actually a scene in this movie that I'm shocked stayed in the film, but we'll get to that. This movie stars Bela Lugosi. We all know and love him here on our Frightening Friday flicks. Bela Lugosi plays a Dr. Miracle, and we also have Sidney Fox, who plays Camille, and Leon Ames, who plays Pierre, the protagonist, which I will note, this takes place in late 1800s Paris, and Camille and Pierre are about the most cliche French names you can have for a woman and a man. But this movie was directed by Robert Florey. I don't know too much about him, but I do know that he was originally going to do Frankenstein, but Universal pulled him from that, and instead they put James Whale on Frankenstein, which we're all grateful for that. But Robert Florey, honestly, he probably would have done a great job with that as well, because he did a good job with this too. And it's extremely important to note that the great cinematographer Karl Freund filmed this movie, which is interesting because he also did Mad Love, which was last week's Frightening Friday flick. And he certainly has a style that you will notice, I would say. So, as I said, this takes place in late 1800s Paris. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that for a creepy classic. Either late 1800s Paris or London with the fog and all that. I'm such a sucker for that. And right away, we are at such a creepy setting. We are at a freak show. One of those carnival freak shows with crazy attractions and really they were so disturbing back then, because right away we see people are looking at Native Americans as if they're sideshow attractions, which is just so messed up. And I know it was a different time, and it's crazy to see that humans looked at other humans in that way back then. So we see them looking at Native Americans as an attraction, and then we see this huge monkey or ape, and it looks like a crazy attraction. And Bela Lugosi is basically calling out, do you want to see something that will blow you away? And of course, Sidney Fox, or I should say their character names, Camille and Pierre, are there, and they're with another couple, and they're excited. But of course, as movie watchers, as horror watchers, we know something is not right. So they go in and they watch this show, and we see this. Well, first, I will say Dr. Miracle, he gives this very intriguing and creepy speech about how basically it's very Darwinism, how humans have evolved. We have come from ape. And he is saying that who is to say that man cannot mingle with apes? And I was taking that sort of as something super gross and messed up, that essentially women can mate with monkeys, and I'm just highly disturbed at this point. But really, Dr. Miracle, he wants a female's blood to mix with that of this huge ape that he has as a sideshow. And I will say it is a beast of an ape, that is for sure. I will say that the ape, it's a man in an ape suit clearly, but don't let it distract you too much from taking this movie seriously for how disturbing it is. So, and also they did show cut scenes of a real ape freaking out and making noises, which definitely added to the realism of the film. I will also note that the up-close shots of Lugosi's face in this movie are just priceless. I mean, Karl Freund is just amazing at showing his face in black and white and getting awesome shots of his unibrow in this. And he also has an amazing, of course, his Eastern European accent, but actually when he speaks French in this, he sounds like he would have been fluent in French. I don't know. So after being at the freak show, there is we learn that Dr. Miracle is essentially hunting females down in Paris, or on this during his travels with this freak show. He's hunting females down in the streets, most likely prostitutes, to use them in his crazy experiments, to mix his monkey's blood, his ape's blood, with the female. And there's this scene, and I have to say, this is one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in any horror film, and I'm serious when I say that. It's in the streets of Paris with the fog, and the fog is just crazy in this scene. It's everywhere. It's intoxicating fog in this scene, and we hear this woman screaming, just screaming her lungs off, and it really gives you goosebumps. And Dr. Miracle sees what's going on, and he gets out of his carriage, and just note the scene. The camera angle is behind him as he's walking towards her, this woman. She's probably a prostitute, and it's just beautiful. You have to see this scene. The fog is everywhere, and it's just so creepy. So then we cut scene to the most disturbing scene I've ever seen, one of the most disturbing I've ever seen in an old movie. And it's this woman is now tied up to two crossbeams, and she's essentially being tortured by Dr. Miracle. Really tortured. And this looks like something like from a snuff film. It's insane how disturbing and creepy this looks. It's like something from Saw. And he's just yelling at her, abusing her. He's kidnapped this woman and using her to mix her blood with an ape. I just listened to that sentence I just said. How disturbing is that? And how ahead of its time is that? And then, on top of things, when she's dead after he stabs her in cold blood, there's this slow scene of him cutting these ropes of her tied to the crossbeams. He undoes a latch, and her limp body falls down into this pit. And it was incredibly realistic and highly disturbing, and I can't believe, in fact, I believe in some countries this scene was cut, but it was just crazy. You'll see it. So then we learn that Pierre is obsessed with these murders of females going on in the city, and I will note that Leon Ames, who plays Pierre, was like a horrible actor. He was so bad and overly dramatic, but it doesn't take away from the film too much. So he's obsessed with finding out who's committing the murders, and of course Dr. Miracle's obsessed with his fiancée, Camille. And I just want to note the scene where Pierre's talking to Camille, and it's a beautiful sunny day, Note the cinematography when he's talking to her and she's on a swing. It was so cool and sort of magical in a creepy way that, oh, everything's okay, but really, no. The contrast of the fog scene to this beautiful sunny day and her swinging on this swing is very creepy. But it was really interesting how they filmed that that scene of her on the swing. And then also, the only other scene I really want to note is when Dr. Miracle is attempting to get into Camille's house. He was just so kind of rapey in this, and just very, I don't know, he's just preying on her. Luckily, he kicks her out, but then we're met with the finale. And I'll just say that the finale was sort of silly, very King Kong-like. I'm not going to give it away, but definitely I will recommend you all to see this movie. It's only an hour long, and again, another wonderful popcorn watching Frightening Friday flick. You may be sort of sick to your stomach with all the disturbing concepts floating around in this movie, but it's definitely worth a watch. So have a good night, everyone, and stay away from the big apes after seeing this one.